This is Judy, and we have our first Facebook Live for tonight. And we have Miss Ari Gracia with us, and she is going to be doing a little bit of talking about how her journey started with homeschooling, and hopefully some people can relate to it. And if we have any questions, give me a buzz. Just type them in, and I will ask her. And without further ado, she's been homeschooling about 2 years, and she has a couple kids, but I'll let her tell you all about that.
Oh, okay. Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ari, like Miss Judy said. I kind of wrote some stuff down here because otherwise I have like squirrel brain and I'll forget everything that I'm talking about. But yeah, I started homeschooling about, we're going on 3 years now with like a tiny little break in between where we didn't for a little bit. But my oldest was about 5 at the time. I had taken him out of pre-K 4, like the very last month, actually. Well, he finished it, but yeah, it was about pre-K 4, I want to say. So he was going into kindergarten, and I started with him. And I had my youngest, who was a year old, and my middle child, Alec, was pre-K 3. So I mean, I don't even know the grades with them, but they were pretty young. And the reason that we had started homeschooling for me was because it was just something that the Lord had led me to do. And something that I had been praying about when he was at school. It just kind of didn't fit for our family. I felt like the vision that I had for our family was just not in line with school life or public school life, at least for our family. And so that's when I kind of just said, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. So we did. And I definitely don't consider myself a homeschooling pro or anything like that, but I can share just the experiences that I've learned doing this with little ones and doing this kind of also on a whim. I know there's a lot of people right now that are in a situation that they're thinking about homeschooling or they're thinking about doing this. And it is very different to, I would say, crisis schooling and homeschooling. That's something that I learned, and that's something that I think I can share with you all. Is when I first started to, I had the mindset of like just bringing the school system into the house. So it was very much like this idea that I had with my oldest and doing sit down lessons, and it looked very similar to the public school at home, and it was just very, very discouraging for me because it did not fit our family and it was just overwhelming. And my ideals and my expectations were shattered to the ground. And so I had to really relearn and unlearn a lot of the things that I thought homeschooling should look like or what homeschooling looked like. And so I definitely would say it's not the same as the public school system, homeschooling in general. So it does look very different. And I think for us learning that or having that perspective too of that homeschooling is a lifestyle and it's not necessarily just like academia at home. And although of course academia is important and that's a part of homeschooling for us, at least it's not the main thing. It's not like the thing that we are stressing out about or anything like that. It's very much a lifestyle for us, and it is with the idea and the mindset that we're educating the entire child, and so not just the part of them that is thriving in academics and like learning and just regurgitating things. It's more of really just educating all of them and what their foundation is and what they believe in, and also just valuing the love that they have for learning rather than learning itself, if that even makes sense. Because I remember when my son did go to school that first year, one of the things that really broke me was that he just came home and he would be so tired. As just this little boy, he would be super tired, and then I would ask him like, well, how did school go? What did you do at school? And he was just like, I don't remember. And like he was just sick, like over it. And I didn't like that for myself, or for him, I mean. And I wanted him to have a real love for learning, and I wanted to cultivate a heart that really loved learning. And that's what I want for my kids. So I would say, if you're homeschooling with littles around, I think having a set, like, understanding of why you're doing it and what your foundation is to do it, because there are going to be those days that are like chaotic and they're fussy and it's messy and they're loud, and those days are going to come. But I think for me, what's helped me is just having that set, um like, understanding of why I'm doing it and sticking to it and seeing things in the long run and like the grand scheme of things, rather than just day to day, like, surviving. I think it's just more laid back now for us, and just really having grace for this season, that we have the littles around, or not really nitpicking on what needs to be done, and if something doesn't get done, and really being flexible. That's another thing that I had to unlearn, was just, it doesn't have to look exactly the same, like schedule wise as well. If something doesn't get done on a set time that you had scheduled it to, being flexible to say, you know what, okay, maybe if dad comes home, we can fit in a lesson in here. And being flexible in where you do it. Like, a lot of the lessons that we do when my littles were having like a pretty crazy day, we'd go outside in the backyard and we would just learn there and do a lesson there, or sometimes even take it to the beach. Being creative with where you do it too, so that your littles can kind of still be entertained. But I did put here, let's see, practical things that I've done with my littles. I did have these big sensory bins, where I would put, I had these noodles, these pool noodles that I would just cut up. And then I had this big old string. I forgot what it was. It was like a shoelace string. And I had one of those. And then I had another box just filled with beans, and just boxes that I would fill things up so that I could just grab one and put it out on the living room while I was doing a lesson with my oldest one. That's another way too that we kind of just get things done in regards to lessons. But again, I said my mindset is really just, it's a lifestyle. It's really much like we're learning all the time, and we're not uh, getting stressed out about lessons, or if something's not going the way that it should, or babies crying or toddlers are having a crazy day. I'm not like freaking out about it anymore. And I think that's the place to start for anybody that's doing this with littles, for sure. But I forgot if I'm even talking about littles or courage to homeschool. Remember, I don't know.
Yeah,
Let me see.
you can talk. You can talk about little. You can talk about littles, and how old are your kids? And so, how do you work? Do you just work with one of them at a time, or do you have them all three sit there, or how do you do that?
So the way that we do it in the mornings, we do it all together. We have a morning basket, and we do the things that we can learn together, which is like Bible, and we do some phonics songs and some praise party songs. We do that in the mornings together. And then after that, the kids, because I think they had that time with me too, I think that helps a lot, that they had that interaction with me first thing in the morning. They kind of, when they go play, they're a little bit more, you know, they can kind of just play with themselves while I'm doing a lesson with my oldest. So I'll do individually with him. I haven't started with my middle, because he isn't learning at the pace that my oldest started off. He's very advanced. So like, he's going into second grade and he's at a fifth grade reading level, whereas my middle one, who's about to be 6, he's not he's not as advanced as my oldest. So I kind of go off his pace too of learning. So I'm not pushing curriculum, or I didn't push curriculum on him um, in this last year, because I had tried to do that and it was just frustrating. And so I learned off of him to how to do that, or what pace to go with him, instead of just thinking that because he's this age he has to learn at this level. No, not necessarily. So I haven't pushed curriculum on my middle one until this year. We're barely going to start a curriculum with him, and he's about to be 6. And so with that, and I'm comfortable with that too, because we kind of, a lot of the things that I base our homeschool off of is Charlotte Mason. And I don't know if anybody's heard of that, or Charlotte Mason herself. I'm sure, obviously. And she doesn't believe that children should even be on curriculum until they're 6. So I kind of base a lot of that on her, but I also go with how my child is learning. And Like I know my 3-year-old is probably going to want to, sit down and have a more structured way of learning. So for her, I'm gonna do that this year, and it's just really seeing your child and how they're learning and if they need that individual attention. But I do individual with my oldest, and the only things that we do together is like the Bible stuff and praise parties and singing and dancing. A lot of dancing, a lot of dancing, because that's the only way I get their attention to learn. Um, but yeah, that's what we do together.
Cool. Cool. And do you do a lot of reading or library things or anything like that with yours, or is that
Yeah,
something that you can talk a little bit about?
yeah. Well, I depended greatly on the arts and crafts things that we have here. So like the Arts and Crafts Center on Saturdays, and then a lot of the stuff that we have at our library whenever they have the arts and crafts. We go there a lot because I'm not a crafty person, and so I had to get creative with that. And so we would go constantly there. But ever since the quarantine thing happened and everything kind of closed down, I had to figure out a way to do that. So I'm going to show you. I had this big old brown tube of paper that I had here. And I kind of just lay it out on the table and let them get as creative as they want with that. And so I bring out the colors and the paint on some days, and just let them craft and let them do it the way that they. And a lot of the times, they've come up with things that are really neat, and that they've learned a lot too, and just independently finding out what they like. Because again, that's one of the things that I really depend on our community for, because I'm not that person to be super crafty, and that's okay. So but yeah, we do like going to the libraries and using every resource that is available to us, because I definitely need it.
Cool. And are you involved in any of the co-ops or anything like that yet with yours, or are they still a little bit too young for that?
No, yeah, we were a part of the co-op in Brighton. Gosh, it's been a while. Tell me the name. We were a part of that. We actually had just started this last year. Gap, that's the one. And we were going to that, and then unfortunately, again, with everything that happened, we're not going anymore. But definitely, we were involved in that, and anything that was available. Really, the museum is another one that my oldest loves to go there for their little classes. That one's a really fun one. I wish they had more. I do. I wish there was more here, but that's another one. And the aquarium. We stopped just doing the aquarium because of the co-op, because it was on the same day. But yeah, we're definitely involved and always looking for more, because I think with littles, I'd prefer doing more stuff like that, actually. And then again, being flexible with the sit down lessons. It's like, oh well, I'm not strictly relying on it has to be at this time. If there's something going on, we're going to do it, because I think since our city's so limited with stuff like that, we take advantage and we go and do that. And schedule lessons for later. And also just having a support system. I'm just saying things that come to mind at this point. Having a support system. So I'm very, very lucky that my husband is very involved with their like education in general and their lessons and stuff, because he works at a school, and he's getting his bachelor's for teaching right now. So he's kind of like super into it. So I'm like, yes, you go ahead and take care of the lessons. So, but that's just been during quarantine. But if you have somebody that's supportive in your family with little ones, I definitely suggest having a good support system with littles. So we're very blessed that we do have that. So find that if it's in your church or if it's your community or your friends, have a good support system that can help you, or if you can meet up with them or switch kids one day, or maybe when they can go with them to have a lesson, or vice versa. So I think just finding ways and being creative to do it with having little ones around.
Okay. So I guess one good question is, how do you limit screen time, or do you limit screen time, or is that something that you fight with or not?
It's a good question. Yes, that is something that I've I'm I've been like one extreme to another. So it's like I want to go out in the wilderness, in the woods, and like go live off grid and have no TVs and no electronics. And then the other side of it, I've been in that place where I'm just like, ugh, and I just give up. And I'm just like, okay, have your screen time. And so I found this really good balance in between two. Well, the Lord has led me to have this really good balance, where I have put it to where it's just in one time frame. So it's 2 to 5 instead of having it sporadically throughout the day. It's 2 to 5, and in that time frame too, that's when I get work done, because I work from home as well in the evenings, and my husband also does stuff from home, and so that's when we get work done from those times. So that's worked out pretty well for us. That's something that we actually just started doing like 2 months ago with this whole quarantine thing, because it was getting a little out of hand. I started noticing that they were just like wanting to get on it all the time, and I was like, okay, we need to find a way. So we actually jumbled it up to having it in a specific time frame, and then that's really it. So they can't have it like any other time. They have to, if they're bored, find something to do. Like I'm okay with that. Find something to do. And they actually do. And it's okay to have your kids like just go be bored and find something to do. I think it's more important for them to do that, because I think having so much screen time definitely, I just, yeah, I've just always been very intense about that for sure. But that works for us.
Okay, cool. And I have one other question for you about with the littles. How do you handle bedtime? Is that something you guys are really strict on, or is that something that you kind of let them go with, or how do you do that?
No, yeah. You know what? We're not that strict with that. And that's because of the way that like our lifestyle is too with church, and when we were going to church and when it was on Wednesdays, um it it would get in the way when we would get home like at 9:30. And so I'm very lenient to them having a little bit of a a later bedtime, and then them waking up a little bit later is perfectly fine with us. And that's something that I just grew to be okay with, because we're homeschooling, and so they don't have to wake up right at 7 a.m. So for them, they usually wake up at around 9:30, and we start school and we start doing things at around 10, and that's okay. In the mornings, I need that time. So and just in general, if you're homeschooling, you're gonna need that time in the mornings to just gather yourself. And for me, I have my devotionals and I work out, and that's my me time. So it's like I'm okay for them to have a little bit of a later bedtime. They're still getting the sleep that they need because they wake up a little bit later, and that just works. That's what works for our family. And every family has a unique fit that works for you, depending on your lifestyle, depending on what you do, depending on them. That's just what works for us.
Okay. And so, I guess along the same theme of that, do you guys do naps still, or I guess your one is a little bit old, but the others, no?
No, yeah, we don't do naps anymore. My youngest is about to be 4. She dropped her naps, I want to say, when she was going on 2. They dropped their naps pretty early, so we don't have naps anymore. And again, I mean, it's fine because they wake up a little bit later, so it still works out, because they get to wake up a little bit later, and I have that time in the mornings, and so it just works out.
Okay, very good. All right. I don't see any other questions here. Did you have anything you wanted to wrap up with, or I think he's
Um,
covered everything?
Let me see. No, I think I kind of covered everything that I had written down anyway. I didn't even look at it, but that just the last thing I would say was just grace for your season. Don't be like me and get discouraged because you have a picture perfect idea in your head of how it should go and then get discouraged. Don't be like me. Have grace for your season. They're little, it's just temporary, and you will not fail them. They're not going, you're doing enough. I think that's pretty much all I would tell myself if I was starting this with little kids. Someone to tell me, like, you're fine, you're doing fine, and they're going to be fine, and they're going to learn everything that they need to learn. They'll get it.
Well, thank you so much for coming in, Audie. We really appreciate it, and thanks for sharing your story